Oh, did I spook you? I'll make you regret thinking that, because I'm the best pull you could ask for. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Seeing as this video will be focused on different types of alter characters in anime, it's really not so hard to surmise that I am, in fact, Dai-chan Alter. I hope you'll indulge me as we discuss the unique and exciting ways anime presents us with alters, shadows, and all manner of doppelgängers. As YouTuber Daryl Talks Games once put it, anime is special in its ability to take abstract concepts and represent them on screen in tangible forms. It's not uncommon to find someone's traumas or depression take the form of a monstrous villain for them to literally fight. Philosophical ideas like the collective unconscious can be represented by an underground subway feeding into the Holy Grail. I love it, don't you? These sorts of things present us with a fascinating form of character development that is far more creative and colorful than the average drama could ever hope to achieve. The way it's done tends to change, but the general idea remains the same. So, let's look at some notable examples. Perhaps my first encounter with an altered form was Evil Ryu from Marvel vs. Capcom on Dreamcast. You can unlock him by inputting a cheat code on the character select screen, and in this game, he was mostly an Easter egg that added Ken and Goki's movesets to Ryu, alongside palette swaps. All three of these characters would appear individually in the sequel, but the image of Ryu in a black gi using the Dark Hado left its mark. This got a proper development in the Street Fighter Alpha OVA, which presents Ryu struggling with the history of his style and Satsuken. His master Goken had a brother, Goki, who took his lust for power too far. The drive to master the art of combat, if taken to the extreme, bleeds into a lust to kill one's opponent. Thus, Goki went down a dark path, practicing the Satsui no Hado, which turns that killing intent into physical might. As the next generation, Ryu finds himself tempted by this power, with various antagonistic forces aiming to push him over the edge. In this way, Evil Ryu is a what-if scenario, a form of Ryu that fails to hold true to his ideal strength. Players can explore this variation, trading in Ryu's benevolence for what can be considered a superior moveset. This gives players the chance to empathize with Ryu, understanding the very temptation he fights against. A variation of this phenomenon can be seen with Kenshin Himura in Rurouni Kenshin. As a young boy, Kenshin was taught the Hiten Mitsurugi style by his master, after having lost his family to a group of bandits. He wanted to make the world a better place, and foolishly believed that by mercilessly killing his enemies, he could pacify the warring state of Japan. He became the manslayer Hitokiri Batosai, feared throughout the land as a master assassin. Instead of pacifying the nation, however, he only sparked more hatred. Killing leads to more killing, and after seeing this firsthand, he decided to abandon his old ways. Now, as a wanderer, Kenshin uses his swordsmanship to subdue his foes without killing them, which requires far more discipline than he used to have. Though it's the right thing to do, he often finds himself feeling powerless to protect the people he loves, causing moments where he slips back into his manslayer mentality. It remains a part of himself that he will always need to suppress and contend with. These types of binary moral dilemmas echo the idea of yin and yang. It supposes our entire universe is balanced by opposing forces. There's good and evil, right and wrong, love and hate, light and dark, winter and summer. One cannot do away with these forces, as they are each defined by the other. Thus, we need to find ways to live in harmony with conflict. That sweet paradox is a delightful part of the human condition, but we needn't always see things through that binary lens. Take the Persona games, especially numbers 4 and 5. True to its name, the Persona games deal with the many faces we put on when interacting with others. It tackles the way we see ourselves in relation to how others see us. Persona 4 mostly deals with shadows, physical manifestations of our suppressed human thoughts. They are the parts of us we wish to deny, given the chance to run wild. For instance, we have Rise Kujikawa, a teenage idol who worries that the caricature she puts on for her fans isn't her real self. Her shadow, then, takes the form of a stripper, daring to expose her true self to the world. While this is a valid part of who Rise is, she denies her shadow, leading to a literal conflict against herself. Ultimately, she's able to reconcile with the fact that people aren't just one-faceted. The person she is in private and the person she is on stage are both parts of her true self. The case is a bit more complex for Kanji Tatsumi. His shadow is a manifestation of the shame he feels for taking interest in feminine hobbies. He overcompensates with a violent, confrontational masculinity that has him paranoid of anything that would harm this image. Naturally, those repressed fears of what people might think of him wind up in his shadow. This flamboyant bathhouse stereotype is less how he actually feels and more just an embodiment of what he's afraid to become. Only by contending with that shame can Kanji truly be himself, no matter what form it takes. Persona 5 puts a spin on this idea with the metaverse. In it, people with especially distorted views of the world form palaces, actual manifestations of their cognition. What you wind up fighting, then, isn't necessarily a reflection of yourself, but rather the version of you that a palace ruler sees you as. Kamoshida, for example, is a sleazy teacher who views himself as the king of the school he coaches at. He views the students as nothing more than his personal slaves and concubines, with An Takamaki being his very own trophy wife. In reality, it's hard to change someone's heart or mind, but if you could literally destroy their distorted way of seeing the world, getting them to change actually becomes possible. This concept gives Persona 5 a strong cathartic value, while also raising some fascinating moral questions. The anime Wonder Egg Priority works from a very similar concept. While this show is greatly flawed for its incomplete and unsatisfying ending, it does present some fantastic emotions and stellar animation. The girls in the story take home Wonder Eggs, which contain the dream worlds of people who have killed themselves due to trauma. By confronting these traumas through combat and emotional strength, the dead are able to find peace. Seems this show and Promised Neverland Season 2 suffered from horrible production conditions, which is downright depressing. Of course, we can't have a video like this without talking about alters in the Nasuverse. Let's get one semantic detail out of the way so we don't get too bogged down, though. Fate has alter servants and a separate class of servants called alter egos. An alter is when you summon a servant with select parts of their personality at the forefront. They're still the same person, but interpreted through a different lens. An alter ego, on the other hand, is what you get when you extract part of someone's personality and manifest it as a brand new individual. I'm not going to fuck around with the details, especially when some alters also happen to be alter egos, so you'd best do the same as I. The best examples are, and always have been, the sexy duo that is Salter and Jalter. In terms of Artoria, we have a hero who is corrupted by the mud of Angra. While it's easy to call Saber Alter evil in the binary sense of morality, she's actually just as dutiful a king as her classic version. Throughout her legend, Artoria was heavily criticized as cruel and inhuman, a product of her being raised to be a king from birth. While she was compassionate and loved her subjects, she struggled to show that compassion to all of them the way they wanted. Artoria Alter, however, believes that being hated is a natural part of being a hero, because doing what is necessary isn't always pleasant. Her willingness to get her hands dirty is a centerpiece of her personality, resulting in an Artoria that appears and acts much more like a villain. Of course, her being bound to a corrupted Sakura highlights these antagonistic traits, as the Salter in Fate Grand Order is often better able to express herself. Jeanne Alter is my favorite alter on a conceptual level. In legend, Jeanne d'Arc is known for her courage, faith, and forgiveness. She fought to fulfill a request from God, putting herself in danger for the sake of her lord. Even as she was ruled as a traitorous witch by the Church of all people, she held firm to her faith, dying at the stake while praying. She was pure, almost sickeningly so, showing absolutely no resentment toward her killers or circumstance. Surely no human would put aside their own suffering so easily, and we'd like to believe that, deep down, she does have that more spiteful side. Turns out, Gilles de Rais thought the same thing, because when he got his hands on a Holy Grail, he used it to summon a version of Jeanne with her resentment brought out to its fullest. In a rather satisfying campaign, she takes revenge on the church that executed her, torching them in flames of hatred. She proves that Jeanne is a more complex character beneath her fame as a martyr. Alter makes regular Jeanne more admirable for having chosen to forgive in the face of inner turmoil. At the same time, it's wildly liberating to see that humanity of hers lash out, as it's certainly what I feel most of us would have done in her shoes. After all, we are often societally bound to keep appearances. We're inclined to only say things we ought to say, while suppressing what we truly want to say. Come to think of it, the fact that servants are idealized versions of their historical selves works as a kind of persona. Let's consider Rider Medusa. In legend, she goes from an innocent child to a horrible, bloodthirsty monster. What we get in Stay Night is a Medusa stuck right in the middle, with both bloodlust and a desire to protect her master. This gives her a second chance at life where she can save Sakura, whereas in history, she failed to protect her sisters when she became Gorgon. These opposing aspects of her can be further represented by both Medusa Lily and Gorgon. It's wonderful seeing them fight in Babylonia, and even better when they reconcile in Solomon. Seeing all these different aspects of Medusa helps us enjoy her as a multifaceted character. Moving on from Fate, I'd like to cover some other unique alter forms. The highly underexposed anime, Summertime Rendering, deals with beings called shadows. These dark beings live by copying and consuming humans, assimilating them and taking their place in society. In that regard, you could be speaking with a shadow and never even realize it. Of course, these shadows have their own agenda, but as they copy other people, they can't help but inherit the memories and feelings of their victims. Under the right conditions, a shadow may even decide to help humans or get along with their original. Unlike their original, however, a shadow may not have anything to lose by being brutally honest. Your shadow, for instance, may be willing to expose your darkest secrets and criticize you for hesitating. If you haven't seen this anime, you can blame Disney Plus for not properly releasing it as it airs in Japan. Of course, I'm sure that's not a problem for you guys. The classic anime Bastard plays with the darker self in the way that Dark Schneider is forced to share his body with the young boy Lucien. While he was sealed away for Lucien's upbringing, he still experienced those years, and they affect him even after he awakens. There's an overlap between Schneider and Lucien where the two share aspects of each other. For instance, Lucien's desire to protect Yoko can give him courage, while Dark Schneider's villainous rampaging can be tempered by Yoko's scolding. It's hilarious. Sometimes, you can literally become your own worst enemy. When reincarnation or multiple timelines come into play, it's possible to interact with a version of yourself from another universe. Despite presumably being the same person, the difference in your experiences sets you apart from each other, resulting in the same doppelganger effect. I already mentioned Wonder Egg Priority, but it has a moment where the protagonist Ai opens an egg of herself from another world, a version that gave up on life. For Ai, it helps to show how strong she's become. In Future Diary, we have a multiverse clusterfuck created when Yuno Gasai goes back in time to rectify her mistake at the end of the first survival game. Hoping to redo the game altogether, she arrives in the past, creating a brand new timeline. Naturally, if you go back in time, you can encounter yourself from the past. And in order to ensure that there's only one Yuno on this new timeline, she murders herself. In a sense, this Yuno is considered an antagonist, prompting her beloved Yukiteru to go back in time and save the first Yuno from the tragedies that led her to this point. It's fucking confusing, so don't think too hard about it. Following similar logic, we have heroic spirit Emiya in Fate Stay Night. You probably already know this, but Archer is a version of Shiro from another timeline that grew up to become a hero of justice. He made a pact with the planet to become a counter-guardian, but later regretted his decision because it meant being a murderer for all of eternity. Even if he saved more people than he killed, his journey was still that of amassing corpses in his wake. Thus, he tried to use the Holy Grail War to go back in time and kill himself. It was a futile endeavor, but it definitely was a great way to develop Shiro and his heroic philosophy. Last up, I'm going to go ahead and spoil part of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. If that's too much for you to handle, well, now's your chance to escape. Okay. The principal cast in Xenoblade 3 is a group of soldiers who are continuously reborn to fight in a never-ending war. This means they're all reincarnations of countless other iterations of themselves that have already died, with the exception of Mobius, the villainous beings who live off the energy from these fallen soldiers. Our main hero, Noah, spent many of his prior lives trying to rebel against Mobius, along with his lover, Mio. Losing the one you love so many times became far too painful, and the Mobius leader, Zed, took advantage of this. Rather than killing this Noah, Zed gave him the chance to join Mobius alongside Mio. By helping the very organization they used to fight, Noah and Mio could be together eternally. As Consort N, this Noah felt he made the only reasonable choice, only to be confronted by the reincarnated version of himself that we play in the game. Our Noah has to face N in battle, despite both having the same feelings. They've simply arrived at different conclusions, but that is enough to cause an intense conflict. Actually, there's something incredibly similar to this in the PS1 classic Xenogears. Our hero, Fei Feng Wang, is also the latest in a series of incarnations going back for thousands of years. His previous incarnation was a man named Lacan who had failed to protect his beloved Sophia. In agony, he sought power from the Zohar and was reborn as the villain Graf. As a child of the next generation, Fei was experimented on until his own powers grew too strong to contain. This energy burst out, killing his mother and traumatizing him dearly. To protect himself, he developed a separate personality, Id, that he used to seal away all his trauma. Not only does Fei have to struggle when Id takes over, leaving destruction in his wake, he also has to fight against Graf, his previous incarnation. Xenogears gives us a double dose of these altered personas. That just leaves me, Dai-chan Alter. How might I describe myself? Well, in proper Fate fashion, perhaps it's best to think of me as Dai-chan, but with all of my niceties tossed to the wind. I'm not here to provide you with wholesome, happy content. No, I'm willing to cover the depraved and controversial, to show you a side of anime that provokes your emotions in all sorts of ways. Honey, if that sounds interesting, show me some love with lots of views, likes, and comments. Oh, and if you toss a tip my way, you might encourage some other surprises. Come on now, show me what you've got.
Thanks for watching!
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of our anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content.
You can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or our YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like exclusive vids and early access.
As always,
celebrate your fandom!
I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, Otaku Mom, Jens Bauman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Freebrick, Cosmonaut, RNG or Shuffles 1498, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Johnny Tsunami, Link Pendrago, Brandon Baker, Observer Bellis, Caitlin P, Vladimirovna, Succubus Sakura, Normace, Jonathan Padua, The Taz 96, and SF Giants fan Mike. Thank you all so much.